warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. On the show tonight, we will tell you about how desperation meets devastation after Israeli fire killed 93 hungry Palestinians waiting for food at the food distribution centers in Gaza. In the past few weeks, nearly 900 Palestinians have been killed while trying to get aid. From the Ukraine-Russia war, we will tell you how Russia has now unleashed one of its largest aerial assaults on Ukraine. Moscow launched 426 drones and 26 missiles. On the show tonight, we ask, for how long can Ukraine endure this airborne assault, with Kyiv still waiting for the delivery of its promised weapons from its Western allies? And from India, we will tell you, nearly 2 decades after the 2006 Mumbai train blast that killed 187 people, the Bombay High Court has acquitted all 12 accused. All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show tonight. Let's get you started. Our top story tonight is about Gaza. We all know what's happening there, but no longer can we afford to look the other way. In Gaza, tragedy has now become a part of daily life, one that shows how hunger itself has become a death sentence. On Sunday, Israeli forces opened fire on crowds of Palestinians. They were not militants. They were not carrying weapons. They were just hungry Palestinians waiting for food. At least 93 people were killed and dozens more were injured. They are all gathered to collect humanitarian aid, food that Gaza has run out of thanks to the ongoing war. Witnesses have narrated the horror, describing it as doomsday. Doomsday because of what Gaza looks like right now. Take a look.
I struggled to reach the truck and grabbed a bag of flour. Suddenly I was hit in the head and lost consciousness. What's happening there is a massacre. Young men are dying for food. My other brother was killed there yesterday. He had 5 children who are now orphans. Both their parents died. I went just to get flour so they could eat.
Well, just imagine that, being killed for a bag of wheat. Children left orphaned because their father went out looking for food. That's the story of Gaza. But deaths of ordinary civilians seeking aid has now become a routine in Gaza. The UN says nearly 800 aid seekers have been killed since late May. They have been killed while waiting for food. They have been killed on routes where aid convoys pass. The World Food Programme has called it completely unacceptable, and according to WFP, 1 in 3 people in Gaza are now not eating for days, and thousands are on the verge of catastrophic hunger. And today, Gaza hospitals overflowed not just with the wounded from Israeli strikes, but also children dying of malnutrition. At least 71 children have died of hunger during this war, and 60,000 others are suffering from malnutrition symptoms. 18 people died of hunger just yesterday. As a result, parents are reportedly skipping meals for days. Families now say that those who did not die of bombs in Gaza are now dying of hunger. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes continue. On Monday, footage showed an Israeli missile hitting a building in Gaza City. Tanks have now pushed into Deir al-Balah in the south, an area where Israel believes some Israeli hostages are still being held. At least 20 have been killed by Israeli fire in Gaza on Monday alone. What's more, Israel has now ordered more evacuations, but the question right now is, where will people go in Gaza? The UN says 87.8% of Gaza is under displacement orders or are militarized zones. That leaves 2 million Palestinians squeezed into just 12% of the Gaza Strip. Essential services have collapsed. Meanwhile, indirect ceasefire talks continue between Israel and Hamas. A proposed 60-day truce and a hostage deal are on the table, but so far, no breakthrough. Some believe Israel's push into Deir al-Balah is perhaps to pressure Hamas for more concessions. But Israeli hostage families fear that this offensive might kill their loved ones. Of the 251 Israeli hostages that were taken by Hamas in 2023, as of now, 49 remain in Gaza, with Israel saying at least 27 of them are dead. Remember, this war began on October 7, 2023, when Hamas militants stormed into Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking Israeli hostages. Since then, Israel's campaign in Gaza has killed more than 58,000 Palestinians, displaced almost the entire population, and pushed the enclave into a humanitarian catastrophe. And now what we are seeing is that food has become a death sentence, and seeking bread is met with Israeli bullets in Gaza. Kyiv came under one of the most intense aerial attacks as Russian forces launched a massive overnight attack on the Ukrainian capital. The nearly 6-hour-long attack, which lasted from just after midnight until early morning, left at least 2 dead and 15 injured. And this is according to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The attack on Kyiv appeared to be a retaliatory strike by Russia following drone attacks from Ukrainian forces that forced Moscow's major airports to shut down over the weekend, resulting in at least 140 flight cancellations in Russia. Well, throughout the night, the sky above Kyiv lit up with orange flashes as explosions echoed across the city. The sounds of drones, anti-drone fire and multiple blasts kept residents awake and on edge. Ukraine's air defense teams were engaged as waves of Russian drones and missiles poured in. And well across Kyiv, thousands took shelter in subway stations. Kyiv residents said loud explosions have become the new normal for many in Ukraine.
We used to come here less often, about once a month. That was 6 months ago. Now we come here 2 or 3 times a week.
It was very scary when the attack happened. There was lots of smoke and dust. We all got very scared. There was a little panic, but because life has taught us how to behave, we've all gotten used to it.
Well, Russia has intensified its nighttime drones and missile attacks on Kiev, especially over the past 2 months. According to Ukrainian authorities, the capital's subway system recorded 165,000 visits during June nights. That's more than double the 65,000 visits in May. Officials further said that at least 4 districts in the city were hit while fires broke out not just in residential buildings by the Russian attacks, but also in a kindergarten, a supermarket and several warehouses. Visuals from the scene show widespread damage, with rescue teams clearing rubble and securing the affected areas.
Last night, our capital city was subjected to a combined massive missile and drone attack from Russia. Once again, this month and last month, we see that they are directing a very large number of drone strikes and cruise and ballistic missile.
It's also important to note here that Moscow has repeatedly stated that it does not target civilian areas in Ukraine. Overall, Ukraine's Air Force reported that Russia deployed 426 drones along with 24 missiles of various classes during the overnight operation, adding that Ukrainian defenses managed to intercept 200 drones while jamming or disrupting over 200 more. On the other hand, Moscow faced drones for the 5th straight night. In the latest attack, a Russian railway station was damaged in a Ukrainian attack. Kamenoli Mini railway station, located in western Russia, caught fire after a drone strike by Ukraine. Russia's Ministry of Defense said that its forces shot down 74 Ukrainian drones overnight, with 12 destroyed in the Rostov region. Over 100 ambassadors and heads of Ukrainian diplomatic missions all over the globe gathered in Kiev for a conference hosted by Zelensky. The event reportedly aimed at increasing cooperation between Ukraine and its global partners, as well as strengthen diplomatic efforts in arms supplies, reconstruction, among other key issues for Ukraine as it continues to battle Russia. Now, Monday's attack on Kiev marks the first large-scale bombardment of the capital since Keith Kellogg, the special envoy to Ukraine, arrived in Kiev last week. Russia had reportedly paused strikes during Kellogg's visit to the capital. Now, all these developments come just days after Zelensky proposed a new round of peace talks to Moscow. The Kremlin earlier this month said it was ready to continue talks with Ukraine after US President Donald Trump gave Russia a 50-day ultimatum, perhaps a window to strike a peace deal or face severe sanctions. With no concrete progress on that as of now, Ukraine's capital for now is counting the cost of another devastating Russian attack. "19 years ago, Mumbai's lifelines turned into graveyards. 7 bombs exploded across first-class compartments, shattering lives and forever scarring the city. Today, in a verdict that shocked the nation, the Bombay High Court acquitted every single person accused, closing the chapter on one of India's deadliest terror attacks, with a verdict of not proven, not guilty. Justice demands answers, yet for the families of the 187 innocent people killed and over 800 wounded on 11th July 2006, the only answer delivered was disbelief. The prosecution utterly failed, and that's according to the High Court, demolishing years of investigation, thousands of witness statements, and the hopes of closure for a battered city. All 12 men, 5 previously sentenced to death, 7 to life imprisonment, now walk free. The convictions dashed as the court declared the evidence too unreliable and the case riddled with doubt. So what happened on July 11, 2006? A series of 7 bomb blasts occurred in the first-class compartments of 7 suburban local trains of Mumbai. That's between 6:23 p.m. IST and 6:29 p.m. IST. They exploded near the stations of Matunga Road, Mahim Junction, Bandra, Khar Road, Jogeshwari, Bhayandar and Borivali. 7 pressure cooker bombs packed with RDX and ammonium nitrate detonated with chilling precision, bringing Mumbai's rush hour commute to a standstill. Investigators raced to track down the perpetrators. 13 men were charged. Confessions were extracted, witnesses were paraded, and evidences were stitched together. But 19 years later, the court said the prosecution utterly failed to prove the case against the accused. The big question staring in the face of many, including the victim, is: if all convicted were innocent, then who stood behind the bombs? And how could justice veer so dramatically off course? Until these deeper mysteries are resolved, the scars from that day will only deepen. Well, in other news, amid Trump's tariff war, China and Vietnam are scheduled to conduct their first joint army exercise. The drills will take place this month. Militaries of both China and Vietnam will conduct these drills in the Guangxi region, which borders Vietnam. Now, this exercise between Vietnam and China comes at a time when the two countries seek to deepen military ties as they grapple with Trump's reciprocal tariff rates. In the past, China and Vietnam have participated in several joint naval drills, but this will be the first time that armies of both the countries are conducting a joint exercise. Both nations already have deep economic ties, with China being Vietnam's largest trading partner. Now, despite territorial disputes there, the two countries are looking to strengthen military cooperation. In April this year, China's army troops had participated in Vietnam's annual parade, marking 50 years since the end of Vietnam's civil war. This was the first such appearance made by China's military as Beijing looks to keep ties warm. That's amid growing American proximity to the Philippines in the region. Let's now tell you what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. A fierce talent war is underway in the tech world, with industry giants battling over who gets to hire the best talent. Later, we will tell you about the heartbreaking story of a couple that was killed for love in Pakistan, all in the name of honor. Stick around as we explore the AI frenzy that is fueling Trump's social media campaign. A military aircraft of the Bangladesh Air Force crashed into an educational campus in capital Dhaka on Monday afternoon, killing at least 20 people and leaving more than 170 injured. The crash occurred at the Milestone School and College located in Dhaka's northern suburb area. And the crash happened while classes in the school were underway. Well, according to a brief statement by the Bangladesh Air Force, an F-7 BGI training aircraft crashed at 1:06 p.m. local time over 50 people, many of them children, suffered severe burns and are now being treated in hospitals across the capital. Many of the injured are said to be in critical condition. Emergency medical teams rushed to the scene immediately and the injured were transported using whatever means were available, including rickshaws and private vehicles. Some of the injured were seen being carried towards a Bangladesh Air Force helicopter. Well, thick smoke blanketed the area as firefighters tried to douse the flames. Video footage shows the charred wreckage of the plane embedded in a school building. Survivors say that they heard a loud noise followed by a huge ball of fire. Eyewitness accounts describe a scene of panic and heartbreak.
When I was picking my kids and went to the gate, I realized something came from behind. Then I heard an explosion. When I looked back, I only saw fire and smoke. Then I just rushed my kids on an auto rickshaw and saw fire and smoke again. There were many guardians and kids here.
Crowds could be seen gathered outside hospitals where the injured are being treated, with some onlookers holding up placards showing their blood types to offer immediate help. According to reports, the military said that efforts were made to divert the aircraft away from the densely populated areas towards a more sparsely inhabited location. But the aircraft reportedly experienced a technical issue and crashed soon after takeoff. With a high-level committee being formed by the Bangladesh Air Force to conduct an investigation and perhaps assess the cause of the crash. In a series of posts on social media, Bangladesh's chief advisor Mohammad Yunus has promised a full investigation and pledged government support to the families affected. Yunus also said that the bodies of those whose identities can be confirmed will be handed over to the families as soon as possible. While DNA testing is being carried out to identify others, the Bangladesh government has announced a national day of mourning on Tuesday, with flags to fly at half-staff across the country. In a post on social media, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, and I'm quoting here, excerpts from it, India stands in solidarity with Bangladesh and is ready to extend all possible support and assistance, unquote. Well, talent is no longer a resource. It's an arsenal, and the battle is about million-dollar payouts. The world's tech giants led by Meta and Apple are tearing up the rule book now. No loyalty, no legacy, no boundaries sacred. Rivals trade executives and engineers as if chess pieces, each determined to buy supremacy in the white-hot field of AI, artificial intelligence. Meta has reportedly dangled as much as $200 million to poach Ruming Pang, who is Apple's former AI lead, into its super intelligence team. Now, Pang helped build the core of Apple's foundation model efforts, quietly powering everything from Siri upgrades to behind-the-scenes generative tech. And now, Pang switched allegiance and joined Meta's AI Avengers. His rumored 9-figure deal is not just an industry flex, it might be the blueprint for how future tech salaries are shaped. Meta Superintelligence Labs have scooped up 2 more Apple engineers, Mark Lee and Tom Gunter, along with over 10 researchers from OpenAI, Google DeepMind and Anthropic. Across the board, offers now routinely include $400,000. Not just that, that's the base salary plus lavish sign-on bonuses and equity, stacking up to tens of millions annually. One machine learning star even received a $480,000 salary at Meta before bonuses. Apple, meanwhile, struggles to stem the flow. Its highly touted Siri improvements are delayed as top AI talent are now gone. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg insists it's not just about the money. He highlights unmatched compute power and autonomy, features he claims are drawing researchers more than pay packets. This titanic tug-of-war is reshaping how AI companies plan. Graduate recruitment is falling by half, with firms shifting towards hiring battle-seasoned engineers because today's AI breakthroughs demand real-world chops. Behind the glamour and dollars lies a brutal truth. The elite 1% of talent is dictating the future of intelligence. And Silicon Valley is in the throes of new AI arms race, where the spoils go not to nations, but to those who can attract and deploy human genius. Now, what happens when love becomes a death sentence? I ask this because in Pakistan, that's exactly what has happened. Pakistan is reeling from yet another brutal honor killing. A young couple murdered in cold blood. What for? What was their crime? Loving each other against the will of their families. A chilling video has surfaced from Balochistan. It shows a young woman and a man being led into a desert, SUVs parked nearby, men with guns standing and elders merely watching. The woman is then handed a copy of Quran. She turns to the man next to her and says, and I quote here, "Come walk 7 steps with me. After that, you can shoot me." The man follows her for a few steps. According to local police officials, the woman did not cry or seek mercy. She said, and I quote her, "You are allowed only to shoot me, nothing more than that," she says in the regional Brahvi language. It's unclear what she meant by nothing more than that. The man then aims a pistol at her as she turns her back, wrapped in a shawl. She stands still as shots are fired. She remains standing after 2 shots, dropping to the ground after the 3rd shot. What follows is a series of gunshots. The footage then shows a bloodied man lying near her body. Then men are shown firing at both the bodies. The couple, whose only fault was that they married without their family's approval, without their consent, and were reportedly called to the village under the pretext of a meal, only to be sentenced to death by tribal council. This graphic video has unleashed shock, grief, and rage across Pakistan. Several actors and singers have called it a national emergency, describing the incident as heartbreaking brutality. But for many in Pakistan, this is not new. Just last week, a woman was reportedly killed by her uncle, again in the name of honor. Earlier this month, 2 men were shot dead in Karachi's Mangipur. In January, a US-born girl was murdered by her father in Quetta. What for? For having a TikTok account. Honor killings continue in Pakistan while governments promise action that rarely arrives. In the aftermath of the Balochistan video going viral, Balochistan's chief minister said that 11 suspects were arrested and a case has also been filed. But the question is, will justice truly be served? Families have long used the idea of honor as a weapon against young people, especially against women. And oftentimes, tribal councils dictate life and death as culture becomes an excuse for murder in Pakistan and the law turns a blind eye. Estimates say around 1,000 honor killings take place every year across Pakistan, and that is according to Human Rights Watch and the United Nations. Official data shows that in 2024 alone, just last year, 405 honor killings were recorded by the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. In most cases, the victims are women, murdered by their own fathers, brothers, husbands, or uncles, all in the name of protecting family honor. What's shocking is that less than 2% of suspects are convicted. In some provinces, the rate is virtually zero, and that's due to social pressure, legal loopholes, and what is called forgiveness clause. In 2016, Pakistan passed a law making honor killings non-compoundable, removing the forgiveness loophole. Yet, enforcement remains weak. UN Women, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch call it a persistent human rights crisis in Pakistan. They have constantly urged Pakistan government to uphold its obligations under the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. But this social evil persists, driven by deep-rooted patriarchy, tribal councils, weak laws, fear of social ostracization, and government reluctance to confront powerful religious lobbies. Of course, the officials condemn each incident publicly and then promise justice each time. But in reality, police often collude with perpetrators or avoid registering cases under societal pressure. As a result, most cases go underreported and survivors rarely find any kind of protection in Pakistan. In southern Syria's Sweda province, the fighting has stopped, but the scars of last week's violence remains fresh. Hospitals struggle to cope as body after body awaits identification. The week-long conflict saw intense clashes between Bedouin tribes and Druze fighters, leaving more than 1,100 dead, and that's according to war monitors. Amidst the ceasefire, Syrian officials have begun evacuating hundreds of Bedouin families from the Druze community-dominated city of Sweda. Women and children are among those being relocated to safer zones in Syria's Deir province, that's from Sweda. And the capital, Damascus, as well, is under the supervision of the Syrian Red Crescent. According to Syrian state media, around 1,500 people will be moved from the conflict zones. Footage from the ground shows Bedouin families packing up and leaving the village of al-Mazra, while armed security personnel have blocked key roads around Sweda to prevent further advances from either side and to enforce the fragile truce. Humanitarian convoys from the Syrian Red Crescent have also started entering Sweda, supplying food and medical supplies to the affected population. On Syria's southwestern border, Israeli troops continue to monitor developments from the Golan Heights. Just last week, Israel launched airstrikes on Syrian military targets in both Sweda and capital Damascus. Among other areas across Syria, Tel Aviv claims it acted to protect its own Druze population and to pressure Syria into demilitarizing its southern region. But behind closed doors, Israel's aggressive posture has drawn criticism, even from its closest ally, about the Israeli strike on Syria's presidential palace. Well, a White House official reportedly described Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a madman, one who bombs everything all the time. US President Donald Trump has reportedly directly confronted Bibi over an Israeli strike on a church in Gaza, demanding an explanation. The Trump administration last week also publicly distanced itself from Israel's military actions in Syria. US State Department officials clarified that Washington did not support the Israeli strikes on Syria.
I can tell you regarding Israel's intervention and activity is the United States did not support recent Israeli strikes.
Well, in the latest, Tom Barrack, U.S. Special Envoy to Syria, in his words, said that the U.S. has no business in trying to compel Israel to do anything.
Well, we can't compel Israel to do anything, can we? That's not, America is not here to compel Israel to do anything. We're here to use our influence to bring calm minds together to come to a conclusion. The U.S. has no business in trying to compel Israel to do anything.
Well, for now, the ceasefire in Sweden is holding up, but the region remains on edge and the road to lasting peace appears long and uncertain.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
It has been 6 months since Donald Trump returned to the White House for his second term. And in true Trump fashion, the second term has been anything but conventional. From sweeping tariffs to mass deportation drives, Trump's first 6 months in office have been marked by a renewed push to implement his America First policy. In the next few minutes, we will tell you if Trump has truly reshaped the global order or perhaps sparked a deeper upheaval. First up, let's tell you how the markets have reacted to Trump's first 6 months in the White House. The stock market rallied during Trump's first 6 months in office, despite a volatility spike in April. The S&P 500 is up 7% year-to-date, outpacing its historical average. Despite market and economic uncertainty, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite reached all-time high. While markets reacted negatively to tariffs in April, a repeat of that has not occurred so far. Despite recent tariff announcements, experts say that the market seems to be in a wait-and-watch mode. Meanwhile, opinion polls offer a mixed bag, but revealing snapshots of Trump's first 6 months in office, highlighting steady support from his base, growing discontent among independents, and deepening polarization across the country. 53% of surveyed U.S. adults disapprove of the job that the U.S. president is doing. Meanwhile, 45% approved of the job that Trump is doing. And according to CBS, this disapproval of Trump is near to its highest level since he returned to office in January this year. According to a CBS survey, Americans want Trump to focus on consumer prices instead of raising tariffs. According to polling compiled by Civics, Trump's approval rating is negative in the majority of states in America, with 31 states showing negative ratings and 19 states showing positive. And talking about Trump's foreign policy and the United States of America's position in the two wars, these 6 months debunked one of Trump's biggest claims, that the Ukraine-Russia war will stop in 24 hours. From blaming Zelensky earlier for the war, Trump has now taken a U-turn and has given a 50-day ultimatum to Putin for a ceasefire with Ukraine. That was about the Ukraine-Russia war. From West Asia, Trump continues to advocate a freedom zone in Gaza and has issued a maximum pressure policy on Iran. Trump's second term has come with a series of challenges both at home and abroad. Though he has seen some successes with the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill and the Supreme Court ruling in his favor in several major cases. In a Truth Social post, Trump claimed his second term is being hailed as one of the most consequential periods of any president. Well, it was a grand treat for Kerala's gentle giants at the famous Vadakunathan temple in Thrissur. More than 60 elephants were treated to a traditional feeding ceremony. Devotees gathered in large numbers to witness this age-old festival where tons of rice and fruits were offered to the elephant as part of the celebrations. Take a look. Well, it's been in the talks for a while now, but it might just be closer to reality than you think. Well, China is pushing for a new regional bloc that can serve as an alternative to South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, also known as SAARC. And no points for guessing, its partner in diplomacy, it's Pakistan. Remember, the SAARC has become defunct after New Delhi refused to share the table with Islamabad over its role in terror attacks on Indian soil. Several questions emerged at the very outset as to what purpose will this new bloc serve, which countries will join and which ones will be left out of the cluster. Let's break that down for you. According to reports, discussions between Islamabad and Beijing to potentially replace SAARC have progressed further. This comes at the backdrop of China's efforts in advancing its influence in South Asia, overshadowing India in its own neighborhood. Experts believe that such a move could not just rejig the dynamics of regional cooperation, but also the fact that leaving India out of future roadmap could have its own share of repercussions. Experts also predict that trade and economic imbalance and avoid in crisis management should an alternate SAARC without India, minus India, gets materialized. Now, back in June, Bangladeshi officials reportedly attended a meeting in China's Kunming that had the new bloc as the focal point for discussion. However, Dhaka remained tight-lipped about it with no indication of an alliance as of yet. However, the challenges faced by SAARC as a grouping are not completely unknown. In 1985, SAARC was formed by 7 founders, including India, and later joined by Afghanistan in 2007. Of late, it is being increasingly termed as defunct or non-operational, and the signs could not get any more clear. First, in 2016, when India withdrew from a planned summit citing Pakistan's support for terrorists attacking an army base in Kashmir, and post-Pahalgam terror attack in April, followed by India's Operation Sindoor, the bilateral equations remain fraught, with more tensions than ever. With New Delhi limiting its engagement with Islamabad at global forums, and this gap between New Delhi and Islamabad is exactly what China is planning to cash on. Over the years, China has also made major inroads in the bloc, especially through projects like the Belt and Road Initiative or the BRI, a partnership it shares with Pakistan. As per experts, this is Beijing's strategic move to secure energy routes besides connectivity and perhaps counter India's dominance by creating a new regional order. However, it is easier said than done, with countries like Sri Lanka, Bhutan and Nepal likely to step back if India gets weeded out from the new bloc, given their dependence on New Delhi for export of food, vaccines and other essentials. The question is, amid all of this, would a China-led SAARC sustain? More questions than answers at this point of time. Another day at the White House, and US President Donald Trump's thought seems to be unraveling, courtesy his obsession with AI that is increasingly blurring the lines between the real, the reality, and the imaginary. On Monday, Trump made fresh headlines for launching new attack against his predecessor, former US President Barack Obama. A video posted by Trump on Truth Social shows a deep fake image of Obama being arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, in the Oval Office. The clip, AI generated of course, starts with Obama saying, and I quote, "No one, especially the president, is above the law," unquote, followed by Democrats, including Joe Biden, also saying no one is above the law. The video further goes on to show FBI agents handcuffing Obama while being watched by Trump himself. This altered image of Obama can also be seen in prison clothes and behind bars. That's at the end of the video. And this comes on the heels of US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard publicly accusing Obama and several of his top administration officials of orchestrating what she described as a treasonous conspiracy to undermine Trump's victory in the 2016 presidential election. Democrats have criticized the report, calling it misleading and politically motivated. Now, coming back to this AI-generated clip, the video comes with no disclaimers of it being fake or fictional, and chances are many with untrained eyes for AI-generated images may even fall for the trope. Back in February, another AI-generated video by the name of Trump Gaza went viral, depicting the war-torn Gaza Strip as a paradise land called the Riviera of the Middle East, replete with resorts and skyscrapers. That was again an AI-generated video. At this point of time, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has resigned from his post. This is the resignation letter tendered by the Vice President of India, where he cites health reasons for the reason of stepping down as India's Vice President. Just hours ago, the Vice President administered the oath to 5 new members of the upper house of Indian Parliament, the Rajya Sabha. Dhankar's 5-year term as the 14th Vice President ends on August 10, 2027. A senior lawyer, he was serving as the Governor of West Bengal when he was elected as the Vice President after being fielded by the ruling BJP-led NDA alliance. And for more on this, our correspondent Siddhant Sibul is now joining us on the phone line. Siddhant, tell us more about Indian Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar's resignation.
Well, a significant development and a very shocking development as well. Of course, the Vice President, in a statement that is issued just a short while ago, said that the reason of resignation is to prioritize healthcare and abide by the medical advice, and he's tendered his resignation to the President. And of course, now it essentially rolls out to the Election Commission that will, of course, make the process of election of the next Vice President of India. But that's the reason so far. But it's a big political development, I would say, coming at a time when the monsoon session has just started. In fact, today was the first day of the monsoon session of the Indian Parliament. And we know that it's going to be a very stormy monsoon session, with the opposition calling for debate on Operation Sindoor, comments by the US President Donald Trump. The Indian Prime Minister, of course, setting the tone. He clearly stated earlier today in his press comments ahead of the monsoon session that Operation Sindoor was able to achieve its targets, the 100% targets, and also talking about the internal situation, about India's space achievements. But essentially, we know that it's a month-long monsoon session where there will be more developments, including passage of key bills. But this is a development that is likely going to be the top point of discussion when the Parliament, of course, resumes tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, of course, is the second day of the session. We know that this is a week that will see a lot of development in terms of announcements, in terms of the bills the Indian government plans to introduce in the parliament.
Right, Siddhant, thanks for getting us the latest on this news. A beacon of hope pierces the darkness of cancer treatment. Revolutionary nano-vaccine technology in groundbreaking animal trials has now achieved a stunning feat, completely suppressing the aggressive recurrence and spread of cancer. While human clinical trials remain distant, the initial results ignite the promise of truly personalized, life-saving therapies. Cancer is an enemy that never stops adapting, returning after every clinical victory. But a new challenger just stepped onto the field. Early experiments with the state-of-the-art nano-vaccine have throttled the very machinery behind cancer's vicious return, extinguishing recurrence and stalling the spread in animal studies with a ferocity that leaves traditional therapies behind. Scientists in China and Singapore have now masterminded this bio-inspired weapon using nanoparticle technology to target not only ordinary cancer cells, but also the most cunning architects, cancer stem cells, whose dormant potential can reawaken and fan new malignancies after surgery or any kind of chemotherapy. Unlike old-school treatments that merely wound, this nano-vaccine targets the root cause, delivering an immune shock wave 7 times more effective than current options and slashing the risks of both relapse and spread of the disease. Yes, human trials do remain a challenge, but the design is compelling. Modular, turnable, and target-precise drugs can be made as per individual patient. If this nano arsenal can be translated into the clinic, it could reshape cancer therapy, transforming silence into swift surveillance. Well, in other news, NASA's revolutionary X-59 supersonic jet has officially entered a new phase of testing as it begins taxi trials, marking a major milestone in the agencies to transform commercial air travel, also known as the son of Concorde. The X-59 is a quiet supersonic aircraft that moved under its own power for the first time. The aircraft, being manufactured under NASA's Quest mission alongside Lockheed Martin, saw its first low-speed taxi test on July 10th. The special project aims to demonstrate one-of-a-kind technology to fly supersonic or faster than the speed of sound without generating loud sonic booms. NASA has announced that these taxi tests are the X-59's final ground-based evolutions there. Ahead of its highly anticipated maiden flight, the American Space Agency in a statement said that the aircraft will gradually increase its speed over the coming weeks, leading up to a high-speed taxi test that will take the aircraft just short of the point where it would take off. Lockheed Martin states that the experimental X-59 is designed to cruise at Mach 1.4 or about 925 miles per hour, reaching an altitude of 55,000 feet, an elevation greater than what most high-performance planes achieve. It will also result in mere just 75 decibels of sound, achieving a quiet supersonic flight, replacing loud sonic booms with softer thumps. NASA has described this sound similar to a faint thunder or the soft thud of a car door. NASA's future plans for aircraft also include flying and surveying how the people on ground respond when the X-59 flies overhead. All right, Paris turned into vintage wonderland this weekend as hundreds of classic cars, some over a century old, cruised through the city's iconic streets as part of the 18th summer Traversée de Paris. From Rolls-Royce to Citroens, over 650 vintage beauties drove through the city, delighting onlookers. We leave you with these visuals as we slip into a very short break. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION The World. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.